If you're wondering what can be planted right now in August, this video is for you. I'm reviewing the best veggies, flowers, and herbs that can be planted right now no matter where you're located. I'm grouping each planting idea according to how many months it takes to get to harvest, because the concern now is, do you have enough time to plant, grow, and harvest it out before your first winter frost arrives? Some of us just have 2 months before first frost, while others have 4 to 5 months left. For this guide to work, you must know your first average winter frost date. Frost dates are what determine when you should plant something, not garden zones. Check the description below for timestamps so you can skip to the part that best applies to you and your garden. And don't forget to grab a free printable checklist of all the crops to plant right now in August. All right, let's get started. Let's start with those of you that have 2 months left until your first winter frost date. That's those of you with first frost dates that land in October. We're looking for things that mature in less than 60 days or can tolerate a little bit of frost. The very first crops that come to my mind are brassicas like broccoli, romanesco, rapini, napa cabbage, sprouting broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. At this point, you should be transplanting them into the garden, not just starting them from seed. All of these crops can tolerate some light frost, and you should harvest them out before any hard freezes arrive. Then we have some other members of the brassicas family that are grown to eat their leaves, as in they don't produce a head of broccoli or cabbage, for example. And that's things like mustards, kale, and collard greens. I also recommend you use transplants for all of these at this point, just because they are slow growing at first. So if you use seeds right now, I don't think you'll get much of a harvest out of them before the hard freezes arrive. You can direct sow seeds for the smaller types of brassicas though. These grow and mature really quickly, and that includes things like bok choy, smaller sized napa cabbages, and a plethora of Asian greens like mizuna, komatsuna, and tatsoi. I have a YouTube video that reviews a bunch of Asian greens you might not be familiar with, so you can see what they look like and get ideas on what to do with them, and of course I'll just link that in the description. You can also direct sow seeds for spinach, Swiss chard, and arugula. For lettuce, I recommend the loose leaf varieties like bronze gourd or black seeded Simpson, because you can harvest the baby leaves as needed instead of waiting for a head of romaine or a head of iceberg lettuce to form. Those always take much longer. All of these smaller greens can be harvested when they are very young to use as baby greens and continue harvesting for several weeks, basically until it gets too cold for them and the plants die. And of course, you can protect your garden crops with frost protection or row covers to help them survive even longer into the fall and winter months. As far as herbs, selection is going to be very important here. You want to select cool season herbs like cilantro, chives, dill, and parsley, because these are some of the most cold tolerant herbs that you can grow. Cilantro actually survives down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. I would direct sow seeds for all of these. They are so easy to grow from seed that it doesn't justify babying little pots or containers of transplants. Since you have 2 months left, you're going to want to select quick growing root crops like radish. The majority of little salad radishes like French breakfast are ready in 30 to 40 days. Or you can try growing daikon, which grows a massive root in under 60 days. Daikon is my favorite because it doesn't have a strong peppery flavor like typical radish. Instead, it's very mellow with a hint of sweetness. Turnips also grow really fast from seed. I harvest varieties like red ball or white egg in under 70 days. They can handle frost as well. As far as carrots, I highly recommend you select the smaller varieties because they will get to maturity faster than regular sized carrots. So choose varieties like Chantenay Red Core or Parisian, which can be harvested in less than 80 days. Parsnips are another root crop that can be direct sowed right now. Think of them as a cross between a carrot and a turnip. This crop is so overlooked. Not many people grow them, but if you're a cold climate gardener, you should be growing them. Parsnips take longer to get to maturity compared to regular carrots, often needing about 120 days, but they are extremely cold hardy, tolerating temperatures down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's still a lot that you can grow with just 2 months of time. Just get to planting them right now as soon as possible so they have the most amount of growing time. And as a last resort, let's say you want to continue growing something during the winter, you can always try indoor gardening. I saw some really cool hydroponic kits on Amazon that will allow you to grow a ton of stuff indoors. There are big ones that can take up a whole wall if you have the space, and there are some mini ones that are small enough to sit on a kitchen counter. This was the first one that I got just to try it out, and I'm loving it. Super easy, came with everything I needed, and everything is growing very well. I'll link it in the description so you can find it. Moving along, let's discuss crops and things you can plant if you have 3 months left before your first winter frost date. So that's those of you that start getting frost in November. You all can pretty much grow all of the things I mentioned in the 2 months category until frost section of this video, plus some additional things. For one, you can grow full-size carrots. They typically need 80 to 90 days to mature and can tolerate some light frost, so get to sowing carrot seeds right now. Some of my favorites include Imperator or Danvers for standard orange carrots, or try growing Solar Yellow, which is a yellow carrot variety. I personally feel like the yellow varieties are more sweet sweeter than the orange types, just saying. And there are some really cool purple carrots like Black Nebula, which has a more earthy but in a good way type of flavor. You can plant radish, turnips, rutabaga, beets, and early maturing potato varieties if you still have a solid 3 months before your first winter frost date. To get these crops to grow as fast as possible, prepare the soil by fluffing up the first few inches. I like to use a hand rake to fluff and break it apart. I also like to work in some peat moss, cocoa coir, sand, or potty mix to make the soil even more fluffy. The roots need to be able to expand and grow deep without being constrained by compacted soil or rocks. This is also a good time to work in some fertilizer that is high in phosphorus and potassium because these are the nutrients responsible for root development. Lastly, if it's a root crop, plant it in a spot that gets full sun. Root crops require a lot of energy from the sun to size up. Let's talk about greens. If you have 3 months until your first winter frost, you can plant all sorts of greens from mustards, collard greens, and kale to lettuce, spinach, Swiss chard, arugula, and a huge variety of Asian greens like mizuna and tatsoi. Whenever I grow something to eat its leaves, I work some blood meal into the soil if I'm direct sowing the seeds, or I add some into the planting hole if I'm using transplants. And that's because blood meal is a good source of nitrogen, and it's the nutrient responsible for lush leafy green growth. If your average maximum temperature high during the day does not exceed 85 degrees Fahrenheit, then you can direct sow seeds or transplant heading types of brassicas like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. Do not plant them if your days are still over 85 degrees Fahrenheit because that will stunt things in the brassicas family. Basically, they germinate and stay as tiny little seedlings because it's just way too hot outside. As far as herbs, with just 3 months left until first frost, I recommend you use transplants so you ensure a decent harvest. If you use transplants, you can plant pretty much any herb from the warm season kind like basil to the cool season types like cilantro. You could sow herbs from seed, but just know they typically need about 2 to 3 months of growing time before you can start harvesting from them, so you might now run into frost. If you're able to protect the herb plants or bring them indoors, then it is not a problem and you can start from seed. If you have 3 months left until your first winter frost date, you can hurry up and transplant or start flowers from seed. The key is to select flowers that mature or start blooming quickly from seed. Focus on annuals because many of them start blooming in as little as 2 months. Some of the fastest ones to start blooming from seed include sunflowers, zinnias, cosmos, and marigolds. With 3 months left until first winter frost, you might have enough time to get a harvest of squash and cucumbers if you direct sow the seeds in very early August or use transplants. Focus on early maturing varieties. The first squash to start producing for me and my garden in less than 60 days is always gray zucchini and any of the patty pan types of squash. As far as cucumbers, the smaller the cucumber, the faster you're going to get to harvest from seed. So focus on pickling types like Boston pickling or Calypso, or the compact bush varieties like Space Master. Lastly, let's talk about legumes. With 3 months left, you can direct sow seeds for various green beans. Choose varieties that produce in under 60 days. The earliest green bean variety that I have grown so far is one called Provider. It always starts producing about a week or two before the other green bean varieties in my garden. And let's not forget about a few cool season legumes. This includes fava beans and all sorts of peas, like sweet shelling peas, snow peas, and snap peas. My personal favorites include Green Arrow sweet peas and Oregon Sugar Pod 2 snow peas. Both of these varieties grow well in a wide range of climates and soils, so they're just very reliable. And all of these things, the fava beans and the peas, grow so much better in cooler weather and can handle some light frost. So very important to note, if you're able to cover your plants with some frost protection, you can extend the harvest beyond your first frost date by just a few weeks. I highly recommend this if you're trying to squeeze one last harvest of squash, cucumbers, or beans, because these are technically warm season crops. They will yield a harvest over the course of many weeks if you can protect them from the cold. Okay, now I'm discussing areas that have 4 months or more before your first winter frost date, like me here in Florida, or those of you that barely get one at all. August is still very hot outside, too hot to be planting cool season crops. So the goal for August is to continue planting warm season or tropical stuff, basically a continuation of summer gardening. Start planting fall when you feel that things are cooling off, as in the days are not as hot. I noticed this at the very end of September here in my Central Florida garden. On top of just planting more summer things, it is also time to sow seeds indoors for fall transplants. And let me just say, if you're a hot climate gardener with mild winters, fall, winter, and very early spring are your best growing seasons, not the summer. So really take advantage of the upcoming season. Start planning where you're going to plant things, buy seeds and supplies, build new growing spaces. Just get ready to capitalize on the best growing time of the year with less heat, diseases, and pests. All right, let's talk about what you can plant outside now, and then I'll get into what you should be starting from seed indoors. I would start by taking a look at your garden and deciding what can be succession sowed, because there is plenty of time to sow another round of warm season or or tropical things. Direct sow seeds for more yard-long beans, cucumbers, cowpeas, squash, flowers, melons, tropical herbs, and edible gourds like loofah and winter melon. Sow seeds for moringa and passion fruit, or plant tropical edibles like papaya and bananas, so these plants get a little established before cooler weather, if any, arrives. Transplant peppers and eggplants so they get to maturity and start producing when things cool down. Direct sow seeds for another round of okra. Transplant your tomatoes once they get too big for their containers. Usually I wait until the end of August when I notice my rainy season has let up a little bit before I start transplanting my tomatoes. One very important note, it's summer and the pests and diseases are infecting everything. So you must be extra vigilant about monitoring and treating plants, or those newly sowed seedlings or newly planted transplants are just going to get decimated. If you struggle with this or just simply don't want to deal with it, wait to plant in the fall when things cool off and the pests and diseases are just naturally decreased. In general, if your plants are getting chewed up, spray with BT or spinosad. If your plants are being infested by a sucking type of insect like aphids, spray with a hard blast of water or spray with spinosad or insecticidal soap. If your plants are infested with a hard-shelled insect like squash bugs or leaf-footed bugs, then use a pyrethrin-based spray to kill their babies or their nymph stage and manually remove the adults by squishing. That is a very general guideline of how to approach the majority of pests that you'll encounter in the garden. And for any leaf diseases, so pathogens that spread on the surface of the leaves like powdery mildew or blight, spray with 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water to clean and disinfect. Now let's discuss what needs to be sowed from seed in August to grow your fall transplants. And I recommend sowing seeds indoors only because it is way too hot outside, or the pest and disease pressure is very high and they will destroy your seedlings. So my preference is to sow seeds indoors. I get a mini greenhouse that I got from Amazon, attach some grow lights to the bottom of the shelves with zip ties, and put it in some unused corner of my house. If you absolutely can't sow seeds indoors, then try your best to find a spot outdoors that is in shade and protected from the elements. I like to sow seeds indoors for all things brassicas, so any broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and kale that I plan to grow in fall. Just sow a few seeds in a 4-inch pot filled with seed starting mix. They are kind of slow growing, so I like to give them 10 to 12 weeks of growing time before I transplant them outdoors in fall. Next, I like to sow seeds for anything in the allium family like onions, green or bunching onions, and leeks that I grow during the fall. If you're a southern gardener, most likely you grow short day onions during the fall and winter, so now is the time to start them from seed. I get a 10 by 20 tray with drainage holes, fill it with seed starting mix, and sprinkle the seeds in. Onions and leeks take forever to size up. They are ready to transplant when the seedlings are 6 to 8 inches tall. And just a tiny reminder, if you plan on growing garlic during the winter, this is usually hot climate gardeners only. It's time to place your orders for seed garlic. In order to be successful growing garlic in a hot climate, the bulbs have to be vernalized or exposed to cold temperatures for an extended period. Give them 8 to 12 weeks at least. This tricks them into thinking they experience a cold winter, which triggers the bulbing process. I put mine in the fridge for 12 weeks, so I order them now in August. By September, they are vernalizing in the fridge, and then I plant them in December. Last season, I had a lot of success with a hard neck variety. Yes, a hard neck called Vietnamese Red. In August, I like to sow seeds for a bunch of herbs indoors to transplant basically once they get too big for their container. The majority of the herbs we use in the kitchen come from the Mediterranean and will really thrive in cooler weather instead of the extreme heat, so I grow lots and lots of them. I sprinkle a few seeds in the cell of a 72 cell seed tray and plant them outside. Once the root system develops enough that it can hold the soil together, if I pop the herb plug out of its cell. I use the same 72 cell seed trays to start a ton of various greens like lettuce, tatsoi, mustards, Swiss chard, collard greens, and a ton of Asian greens like mizuna and kometsuna. All of these things will take about 4 to 6 weeks to be ready to transplant. By then, the weather should have cooled down a bit. And I'll put links in the description to where you can find all of the supplies I just mentioned. Lastly, I want to inspire others to grow lesser known or unusual crops from around the world that will grow fantastic during this time of the year. So in the last few monthly garden guides, I've added a few crop ideas from around the world at the end. So here are a few ideas for you that can be planted right now in August. August is a great time to direct sow or transplant Lagos spinach, also known as celosia or Nigerian spinach. This vibrant green is not only heat tolerant, but also visually stunning with deep burgundy and green leaves and a lush leafy habit. In temperate zones, gardeners can grow it as a fast-growing summer green, similar to amaranth. In tropical areas, I plant it in a full sun spot and harvest regularly to keep it bushy and producing. Lagos spinach is rich in iron and vitamins, and the leaves are delicious cooked like traditional spinach. A helpful tip, if you let a few plants flower, they'll reseed very easily all over the place. But be ready to thin them out because they do tend to spread quickly and you just don't want them overtaking your garden. Hot climate gardeners can plant aca tubers in August for a future winter crop. These lesser known tubers are a staple in Peru, but rare in United States gardens. They grow like small potatoes and have a lemony flavor. Since their ideal growing temperature range is 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, they will grow really great as we approach the cooler months. It takes 6 to 9 months of growing time to get to harvest, so this crop is only recommended for gardeners with mild winters, no hard freezes. A wonderful leafy green to plant in August is Sisho spinach, also called Brazilian spinach. This is a heat-tolerant perennial leafy green from South America that thrives where lettuce often fails. It's a perfect low-maintenance cut and come again green for tropical and subtropical gardeners. The curled leaves are very ornamental and give a tropical houseplant type of appearance, except the whole thing is edible. The flavor is very mild, similar to romaine lettuce. Summer is a great time to plant African horned melons, also known as kiwano. This striking fruit is native to sub-Saharan Africa and is prized for its spiky orange skin and vibrant jelly-like green interior. This heat-loving, drought-tolerant plant thrives in warm climates with full sun and well-drained soil, making it ideal for hot or tropical summer gardens. It grows as a vigorous vine, so give it plenty of space or a trellis to climb. Harvest when the skin turns bright orange. The fruit has a mildly sweet, tart flavor. Some describe it as a mix between cucumber, kiwi, and banana. It's commonly eaten fresh, added to fruit salads, blended into smoothies, or used as an exotic garnish. And finally, we have ground cherries, which originate in Central America. Ground cherries are related to tomatoes and produce a small husked fruit that tastes like a mix of strawberry, banana, and tangerines, in my opinion. They are super sweet when fully ripe and perfect for jams or fresh eating. Plants are easy to grow like tomatoes, but are more compact and have a bushy habit that does not require staking or trellising. Ground cherries go by many names, including poha berries, Inca berries, and gooseberries. They are easily started from seed, but there is one very important thing to note, and that's that the seeds require light to germinate. So sprinkle a few seeds in a 4-inch pot filled with seed starting mix, pat them down so they make contact with the soil. Do not cover them with soil, and then gently water them in. Place the entire container under a bright light source so they germinate. I hope this guide sparked some fresh ideas and helped you feel confident about what to plant in August, no matter how close or far away you are to your first winter frost date. There's still plenty of time to keep your garden growing strong. If this guide helped you out, please give me a big thumbs up. That helps out my channel more than you know. And subscribe so you don't miss any of my gardening tutorials. Let me know in the comments what you're excited to plant this month. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.